All right, guys, we are here. How's it going today, Graham?
It's going well, man. How you doing?
Cannot complain. It's been a great week. I feel like a lot is going on. We got a lot to talk about today, and yeah, we'll go ahead and kick it
That's right.
off. Here, I'm
Yeah, I
gonna.
feel I feel weird. I feel like I got to give a disclaimer that I'm like, if like a voltage sign in the background, I have like my voltage hoodie on. I feel like I'm like overdoing the branding, but when you have so many clothes that's like company branded, it's hard to it's hard to not.
It looks great. I love it, and I agree. Keep rocking it. Well, guys, we're gonna dive in and talk a little bit here today. Kicking it off with API monetization. There's been quite a few projects that I'm learning about recently on API monetization. And one user of Voltage, Sulu, they're monetizing, helping folks monetize APIs, and they use the Voltage product, but they put together a walkthrough tutorial series, which is pretty sweet on how you can pay per use. But Graham, to kind of, I guess, kick this off, I'd love to hear like why this is important for those who don't maybe understand like what APIs are and why monetizing these in real times are even meaningful. But if you could explain that.
Yeah, I mean they're yeah, Sulu's doing great stuff. I mean, basically like, APIs are they're essentially today like the things that power most all of like your websites, your experiences. So you have Twitter or X or whatever, like on the front end, it's hitting an API to pull in all of the data to surface the things. They're adding basically so like the L402 protocol is basically like a way of adding in payments into like your kind of native internet experiences, doing so in a way that's like actually kind of more true to the protocol instead of like slapping a credit card screen like on your on a website. And then it's kind of like all that's a level higher than the actual like internet protocol. And so they're doing this and kind of building it a little bit more true to the internet, so to speak. And then they're doing it in a way of like, you can actually add payments to APIs. So this is things like, I think that this would be a really big deal for like data providers where you maybe pay for a particular amount of data. You could do it for like time links of like, hey, you can, 10 minutes costs like $1 or whatever. Then also doing things like paywalls and whatnot. So there's a lot of things that feel like are things that we have talked about as opportunities for Lightning to solve. And I
Mm.
think that it's been maybe a little bit challenging for some of them to be able to actually, for those to be solved. I think that Sulu's solution here is really helpful in terms of actually, you don't have to build everything from the ground up. They kind of help provide a really simple experience on top. So overall, a way of kind of monetizing more of this kind of the data and the access to the underlying platform via the Lightning Network.
Very cool. And on that note, there was another builder, Matt, who works part time at Bitrefill. I've followed Matt for a while. He shares a lot of really cool data. I just feel like from following him the last couple of years, but he actually made a project called Pay Per Queue, so pay per query. It's essentially Chat GPT-4 where you only pay per prompt, which is pretty sweet. So like for us, I have a Chat GPT subscription. I pay 20 a month. I've had times where I don't use it for 3 weeks and I might use it 5 times in a month. Like for me as a user, I'm overpaying, right? But he has made it to where you can use ppq.ai. And if you only ask 20 prompts, you're only paying 10 a month. So significant savings and being able to leverage, exactly what you're talking about, leverage and have access to it. You can use Albi, a WebLN wallet, and make payments per use. So this is pretty cool application. I believe he used Voltage to build it. He shared.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is definitely a really cool service to build and be able to pay for it via Lightning. So I think this is definitely really cool. I think it's definitely something to check out as as more and more people start to use AI and Chat GPT and all of these things. It's definitely really interesting where you don't have to necessarily buy a subscription. You can just kind of pay for like specific queries. I know that's something that I personally have like tell myself I need to use this stuff more, but I don't use it a lot. So it feels kind of like a waste paying for a whole subscription when I maybe do a couple queries a month or something. So I really like this service that I'm going to go and try out and use. So we can have it's just more of like a consumption base rather than a flat subscription. So really excited
Yeah,
to see it. And I think that this is, people always talk about the mix of AI and Lightning or AI and Bitcoin. And this is a classic example of, being able to like build that and see it kind of in the real world. So this is really exciting to see.
100%. Nice. Well, cool. Cruising along. Stratum V2. So I've tried to follow along with this. This is very technical. From everything I read from Pavlinex, he was basically breaking down and explaining. It's basically open sourcing some stuff with mining, which is good. Tell us what this means.
I need to be a little bit more up to speed with Stratum V2, but Stratum V2 does a lot. It's kind of like it's a protocol and ways for miners to both the way I think that it involves several things from like a mining things as well as like template construction of like how is as you basically so with a template construction, what maybe starting at the highest level, what is a template as far as like what does that matter? A template is like basically the amount of transactions being pulled from the mempool and being inserted into a block that is then mined. Bitcoin Core has sort of like this default block template that you can just kind of, you don't have to think about, oh, what are the transactions that I want to confirm. It kind of has a predetermined template that it uses to add the transactions into a block that will be mined. With Stratum V2, you can do more custom block templates. So you can kind of define your own, specifically define which transactions get input or maybe some parameters or things like that. That's still possible today. It's not Stratum V2 doesn't necessarily enable it, but I think it does have some things that make that easier, or maybe some more flexibility there. And then it also has a lot of capabilities as far as I think it's trying to also decentralize a little bit of that block template construction too. I'm not entirely privy to all of the enhancements that Stratum V2 does, but what I think the big impetus here is that they're reaching kind of a 1.0, which is really being able to. A 1.0 in kind of software means that it is sort of like ready for production, where it is, they've worked out a lot of the kinks. If they feel really confident in its ability to actually be used in a serious way, and so that's really exciting to see it being able to reach this 1.0. I think they're open sourcing a lot of components of it as well. So it's really great to see. Basically, this has been something for anyone that's kind of followed along in the miner space. This is talked about a lot, and this is referenced a lot. And so it's great to see it kind of continue along its journey, reach this milestone. Then I think it'll continue to gain adoption from here. And now that it's kind of marked as a little bit more production ready than the earlier versions.
Very cool. Yeah, I feel like there's so many areas or corners of Bitcoin you could be, whether you're on the consumer side, talking with individuals who use it, or the B2B side, looking at all of the technology that's deployed so it can be used as infrastructure within a business. But then you have the mining side, which is in some ways almost a deeper rabbit hole because it does cross into so many industries. And
Yeah.
one thing I've really enjoyed though is there's been a lot of events over the last couple of years, I feel like, that really shine light on mining. And I love whenever mining experts come and talk and do like a 20-minute presentation on like simplifying what they're doing in the industry. So like Giga Energy did that at Bitcoin Commons a couple of weeks ago when we were there. Some of the mining summits that are happening, like it's incredible to see. And I guess these block templates, I don't know how relevant this is, but the news today, Marathon is basically making art out of the blocks they're mining. And from what I read, and just so y'all know, this is like really what they did. It did cost them $122,000. Apparently all the blocks were empty, but they were able to construct art, and they were like basically making the stance that, hey, if you ever do want to, construct a logo into a block, you could do it. They're not making it available to the public, but it's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's interesting. I don't know what the real use case of this is, but it's definitely interesting. It's definitely caught a lot of people's attention to see this in a block. And I think that it's also interesting because it's viewable from mempool.space, but it's not really, I think to any other explorer, it's just a kind of a bunch of transactions, just like anything else. But it's interesting. I don't know honestly what to say about it besides that it's just like this interesting piece of art that's on mempool.space. And I mean it's kind of goes into like if thinking of your Bitcoin bingo card for 2024, this is definitely not something that I would have ever imagined happening. And it's so like off the wall. It's not even like an ordinal. It's just an image on mempool.space based on the transaction. So certainly interesting. It's gonna be it's gonna be interesting to see what other people do with this, or if there's more to come from this. But yeah, and overall, it goes back into like kind of block template construction and things like that. I mean, people can do whatever they want as far as adding transactions into Bitcoin and how that works. And so this is one of those use cases of people kind of creating their own templates, because obviously the default Bitcoin Core template is not going to output something like that. And so they have a lot of flexibility in what they actually put into their blocks. So I think that's a classic example of like that in practice. They can kind of do whatever they want with the templates.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I know we covered a few weeks ago, Brains, they are, doing lightning, payouts with mining, which is cool to see. It's just seems like every couple of weeks there's something new going on in mining, which is good. And the more free markets can do what free markets do, the more solutions will be spun up. So while I'm never someone who's probably going to pay to put my logo into a block like that, it's, I guess, entertaining, and at least that people can do that, and there's creative ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's like I would probably never do that, but good for them.
All right, it won't be on the 2025 budget. We'll just say that right now, guys.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next thing. This is pretty sweet from Phoenix, what they're doing. It sounds like
Mm-hmm.
self-custodial, no sign up, automated liquidity, easy APIs for developers. Phoenix D. I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on this, Graham. Phoenix just continues to do cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting from like, Phoenix is probably the most popular non-custodial like mobile wallet out there. And so it seems like they're kind of like making the same experience available on like on a server or on a website or desktop or anything like that. So it's interesting. I think that I haven't really had a chance to play around with it or anything like that, but it's definitely interesting to have those. Some of the great things about Phoenix is they've done a lot of it's a lot of custom work around like they can do like splicing and like all of this kind of automated liquidity management from things that are around that are maybe earlier in protocol level phase where it's not like splicing isn't available to all implementations across the network and dual funding and all of these things. And since they own kind of both sides of both the receiver as well as their sort of their LSP, they can do a lot of more unique things. And so I think that this is, and based on those unique things, it can offer an experience that is pretty good. And so they're kind of, I think, bringing this into like different areas, which is cool. I think that it'll be cool to see how this kind of plays out and how people use it, given the popularity of their mobile wallet.
Yeah. Yeah, this is really cool. I think from my perspective too, because one thing as a marketer and someone who does sales for a living, like in Bitcoin, is I always think about there needs to just be more and more approachable ways for people to do stuff. And whenever I see something like this, all boats rise. Like if there's 15 to 20 different ways in order to come into Lightning or into Bitcoin and start building, like that's great. And as people move along, they're going to continue trying new solutions. It's almost like we need, like at Walmart when you walk past an end cap, and you can just grab an item and like check out. We need that type
Mhm.
of experience in Bitcoin to like warm people up to it. So it's always fun to see new projects or approaches and things like this. So good job, Phoenix.
Awesome.
All
Yeah.
right. So tell me more about this, Graham. You shared this point with me, and it seemed like a lot of folks were excited. But Vladimir, can you tell us a bit just about maybe his background and like this person coming back to Bitcoin Core, what it means for just the industry?
Yeah, I mean, so Vladimir was the lead maintainer of Bitcoin Core. Previously, he had stepped down. I think that he was one of the victims of the Craig Wright like lawsuits, or at least was threatened with a lot of legal action from Craig Wright. And then, given the stance from the judge, when was that? A couple weeks ago or something, around Craig Wright not being Satoshi. that was a big win across the board. And so I think that basically, if you opened up his post there, that link from his GitHub, he tells more on kind of like his thinking there. But basically, it's kind of the green light for him to feel comfortable getting back involved and not having this like looming legal risk where you're going to get kind of sued or anything like that for just being a maintainer of Bitcoin. So it's great to see him. I mean, he was a great guy. He was very involved in Bitcoin Core and the development process and all of these things. And so it's unfortunate to see him have to step back, which is understandable. So it's great to see him kind of coming back in and being a core maintainer again and participating. So it's really exciting to see him kind of return. And then I think that it feels like kind of a check mark and like being like, we've defeated Craig Wright. He's not going to keep, screwing us, and we can kind of come out of our shells again and just do the normal things that we were doing before without having this looming risk of, am I going to be sued or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah. That's got to feel great. Well, that's cool. That's awesome. Thanks for breaking that down. All right. And then here's something here. I know while Bitcoin's a tool that enterprises can use, there's also the need of individuals who are the whole reason we're here today. The grassroots community that built Bitcoin. And one thing Tony was covering this week was just lightning withdrawals to Mutiny being blocked off by certain institutions or groups. EU laws obviously impeding on the ability for folks to work and just do what they do. Now, my question, Graham, I'm not privy to law, and I don't expect you to have the knowledge of a lawyer in this case, but it seems like this is what I tend to hear folks talk about: is we need privacy somehow on the protocol level, and it just kind of almost solves for this. But can you kind of talk about maybe the challenges developers face of privacy on the protocol level versus building it directly into web apps, or however we have to kind of work our way into doing this?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the overall thing there is like, really, if a company is building privacy kind of into their products and services, it's naturally going to be a government could force them into removing the privacy features. Essentially, it's kind of like it's something that a company is like willfully putting forward, but has the complete control and the ability to remove. In which case, a government could tell you need to remove that feature. You need to start tracking your users, whatever. When we solve these things at a protocol level, there's no individual that has control over removing the privacy feature of the protocol. If it's built in and kind of like the foundation of how the system works, any organization has much less capabilities in determining removing a privacy or trying to like identify users or anything like that. Because if we have just a service where it's like no service provider would ever know, sender, destination, amounts, anything like that. I mean, there's no way that you can kind of comply with any laws because you just literally don't have that information. And so that's why it's important to build things. A lot of the privacy tech, at the lowest level, is because that means that if it's in the decentralized part of the network, then there is no one that has the ability to really obfuscate or take away that obfuscation from whatever like the payments are or anything like that. So doing things on a protocol level is very important for that reason. And this is where Tony's kind of pointing out that Mutiny there's kind of like this separation of like, Mutiny as an organization they don't generate keys for you. They don't have any kind of control or knowledge of their users, like hardly at all. They don't even generate invoices for them, anything like that. And so it's kind of like, well, how would a service like Mutiny comply with laws like this when they literally don't see any of that information? They don't interact with any of those things. And so it'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out. I think this is just another example of just kind of bad policy that hopefully, as we have more education around and people inside of law, like the different spots of government that kind of create these laws to be able to kind of counteract things like this, that's why we need to have both protocol level features that prevent us from doing things like this, as well as people inside of governments to make more sensible laws and just this overarching kind of rule that government needs to see every single transaction that you ever do, whether it's me paying for like a something from Facebook Marketplace in cash or something like that. Like, kind
Mhm.
of ridiculousness that goes on. So that's kind of I think the big impetus here is, needing to build like privacy and from the ground up.
Yeah. Is there anything right now that's being specced out or worked on that could do this for people that you could like mention maybe for those who are not privy and they're inspired to maybe work on a solution like this?
I mean, there's a lot actually. I mean, inside of like Lightning specifically, there's like blinded paths, there's trampoline routing, all of which are like privacy improvements. They don't, they aren't a complete. You aren't completely anonymous. Like there's kind of like there's a bunch of nuance into all of that, but there's definitely protocol level things that are being worked on to increase the privacy of senders and receivers and all of these different things, and correlation and all of that stuff. So a lot happening there. There's things on like the base layer too, with like, we talked about, I think, a BISC protocol upgrade last week or the week
Mhm.
before. There's a lot happening, kind of in no matter which area you want to go down. So lots of opportunity to kind of participate and contribute in those different capacities.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Well, this has been great. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday again discussing the latest in Bitcoin and Lightning. If there's any topics you want to discuss, feel free to shoot them over in a DM. And if you're a builder in Lightning, explore the new Sulu tutorial that we released in collaboration with
Hmm.
Sulu. Their team is working on a lot of new walkthroughs and tools that our users can take advantage of to start exploring, the API monetization use case. And if there's anything you guys in the audience would like to see, please recommend it. We'll work on it. Anything you feel that would be of value for other builders or yourself, pass it along to us. And we are hiring for a developer relations role. I guess I should mention that. We've had some applicants. We're going through those now, and we're going to be ramping up
Hmm.
developer relationship uh, the experience and just some of the marketing material and tools that are going to help builders. So I don't know if there's anything you want to share on that, Graham, just as we conclude, but I'm excited for the year and just having more of these things that are going to make building very actionable for our users.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I think you hit on the head. Like we're definitely looking in, increasing our developer experience by hiring, developer kind of advocate, developer relations engineer. So if you're interested or know someone that is, definitely feel free to apply. And yeah, I think we got a lot more coming. So I think that's about it. And I was also going to mention we didn't be able to get it into this show, but Super Testnet releases something on Stacker News about Hedgehog, is what he's calling it. It's a new asynchronous layer 2 for Bitcoin payments or something like that. I have not watched the video. I have not researched it at all yet, so I can't speak on it. We'll cover that next week for sure, because I'm very interested in it. Super Testnet does some really interesting stuff, so I'm throwing that out there for now for anyone to go and check out and watch, and then we'll cover it next week.
Yeah, I got to watch the first 4 minutes of it, and he was just like, I took this idea from Barack and like did this twist to it, and he's like, I think I invented it, and I was like, this guy is so cool, man. He is just always creating new stuff, and it's so fun to see what he builds. But yeah, we'll add that to the docket next week for those of you who do explore it. Let us know what you think, and Graham, I know we're at time. I appreciate you sitting in again this week. We'll see you guys next week.